You know that feeling, right? Someone gives you a stunning Cattleya orchid, it's absolutely beautiful. And then you watch it slowly fade, never to bloom again. Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to crack the code on these gorgeous but, yeah, notoriously tricky plants. Let's dive in. It is so frustrating. You give it what you think is the perfect spot, you water it, you talk to it, but still nothing, no flowers. The good news? There's a really simple reason this happens, and believe me, it is completely fixable. So here's the thing. The key to a happy orchid isn't some secret fertilizer or a magic trick whispered among gardeners. It's all about understanding the plant's biology, how it's built to survive, and then just giving it what it's programmed to need. Let's take a look under the hood. To really get how to care for an orchid, we first have to understand its basic parts, its anatomy. And we're going to start with the plant's absolute most important survival tool, the pseudobulb. This right here, the pseudobulb, is the heart of the orchid's entire survival strategy. The camel's hump analogy is perfect. It's literally a storage tank for water and nutrients that lets the plant survive for weeks on end during dry spells in its native habitat. Okay, let's bust the biggest myth in the orchid world right now. It's not overwatering that kills your plant. It's root suffocation. Because the plant has its own water tanks, those pseudobulbs, its roots are not designed to sit in soggy, wet soil. They need air. What we call overwatering is really just drowning the roots and cutting off their oxygen. Now, I know it's tempting to clean up the plant and snip off those old, shriveled-looking pseudobulbs that have lost their leaves, but don't do it. Think of them as backup battery packs. They are still feeding energy to the rest of the plant, fueling new growth and those future blooms you want. So we've got the engine figured out, we know how it stores its energy. Now for the fun part. How do we get this thing to actually bloom? Well, it turns out there are two key environmental triggers that are basically non-negotiable. The first trigger is light. Cattleyas need a ton of it, and lucky for us, the leaves are like a perfect little gauge. If they're a deep, dark green, that means the plant is struggling, producing extra chlorophyll just to soak up every little bit of light it can find. There's no leftover energy for flowers. But what you're looking for is this beautiful, vibrant chartreuse-green. That color tells you the plant is so full of light energy that it's actually storing the surplus. And that surplus is the fuel for blooming. And here is the second trigger, the one that surprises almost everyone. It's a drop in temperature at night. You need a consistent drop of about 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 5 to 8 Celsius. This little shock is what tells the plant, okay, time to stop growing leaves and start making flowers. It's mimicking the change of seasons in the wild. And look, this isn't just a theory. Horticultural research is crystal clear on this. Without that temperature drop, your orchid will just stay in what they call a vegetative state, which basically means it'll grow leaves and roots forever, but never bloom. For most of us growing indoors, just cracking a window at night in the spring or fall is usually all it takes to send that signal. So, to avoid that root suffocation we talked about, you just need to get into this perfect rhythm. Drench the pot completely, let all the excess water pour out. And then, this is the important part, wait. Let that mix get almost bone dry before you even think about watering again. When in doubt, just wait another day. Okay, we understand the biology, we know the blooming triggers. Now, let's actually build the perfect home for our orchid. We're talking about the right potting mix, the right pot, and the right food. First off, the potting mix. It's not really soil. Its number one job is to provide air for the roots while giving them something to cling to. A mix of fir bark and charcoal is fantastic. And that charcoal is a secret weapon. It's super porous, so it boosts airflow, but it also absorbs extra fertilizer salts that can build up and burn the roots over time. Now, this is going to sound a bit strange, but when you repot, please resist the urge to put your orchid in a giant, spacious new home. They actually bloom best when their roots are a little snug or fairly tight. Why? A pot that's too big just holds a ton of extra potting mix that never gets used by the roots, so it stays wet way too long, and that leads straight to root rot. Let's talk about food. The easiest way to remember this is the weekly plan. During the big growth season, spring and summer, you fertilize weekly, but with a fertilizer that's diluted to quarter strength. Then, in the fall, you switch to a bloom booster to encourage those flowers. And come winter, you just back off and let the plant rest. Simple as that. All right, we've pretty much nailed the basics of care. Let's level up and talk about how to prevent problems before they even start. Because good hygiene is what separates the casual growers from the real pros. You know, one of the biggest enemies of an orchid is just still, stagnant, humid air.
It's the perfect breeding ground for all sorts of nasty fungal and bacterial diseases. The solution is so easy. Provide good air circulation. A small, cheap fan is one of the most effective tools you can have. It dries the leaves off quickly and just keeps those pathogens from getting a foothold.
Okay, now we have to talk about something really serious for a second: orchid viruses. And this is a huge deal because there is no cure. None. Once a plant has a virus, it is infected for life, and it can easily spread it to every other orchid in your collection. So prevention is everything. So how are these viruses spread? Almost always, it's through contaminated cutting tools. So the number one, non-negotiable, absolutely critical rule for preventing this disaster is to sterilize your tools between every single plant. A quick pass of a flame from a lighter or a dip in a bleach solution, that simple step can save your entire collection.
Whew, that was a lot of information, I know. So let's just boil it all down into a super simple checklist. These are the 4 absolute keys to keeping your Cattleya happy and blooming.
It's this simple. First, read the leaves to make sure the plant has enough fuel. Second, create that temperature shock to provide the spark for flowering. Third, master that wet/dry cycle to protect the roots. And fourth, practice good hygiene to protect the plant for the long haul. That's it. That's the code. See? The secret to growing these amazing orchids isn't really a secret at all. It's just about understanding how the plant is designed and giving it what it needs to do its thing. Now that you know the code, you're totally ready to unlock the full potential of your queen of orchids. So, what amazing things are you going to get your plant to do?